So I do understand that it is so important to first understand the problem and ask the right questions to dig deeper into what the interviewer is looking for. But then I would like to hear it from the mouth of a senior engineer who's done that. Well, I am Vidhi, co-founder at Canada Mentors, and we have Raju today here with us. He's a senior engineer with a leading fintech company right here in Canada. Well, hi Raju, welcome, and thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah, hi Vidhi. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, likewise. Well, Raju moved from Bangladesh to Canada last year, and he is a senior software engineer with a leading fintech company, like I mentioned earlier. Well, Raju, do you want to give us, a quick introduction so the viewers of this video can understand more about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Raju Shetu. So people call me Raju. I've been working currently as a senior software engineer in a leading fintech company here in Canada. So I'm currently located in Toronto, Canada. I have been migrated from Bangladesh in last year, September 2021, and I've been working in the software space for about last 7 years. And my main focus area would be like backend and system design and architecture.
Awesome, awesome. So this means that you worked in Bangladesh for multiple years, and now that you've been in Canada for over a year, you've had the exposure of interviewing with Canadian companies and working with Canadian companies now. So Raju, could you help us understand how the interview process back in Bangladesh was different from what you saw here?
In Bangladesh, like the interview process was pretty much straightforward. There is less levels to cross compared to Canada. In Canada, like there are like 4 to 5. In very extreme cases, you might be re-evaluated in different stages, so that might accumulate up to 6 or 7 interviews for a single company. But in Bangladesh, mostly I face like around 3 at best. So I think like that's the main difference whenever you are interviewing in compared to Bangladesh here in Canada.
Okay. And those 6, 7 interviews that you said you've seen Canadian companies take, how are those interviews structured? I mean, usually from my experience, I have seen 4 rounds of interviews. It starts with a quick HR screen, moves to a coding round, then there is hour long of system design, and then finally it ends with a culture fit, team fit sort of an interview. That's what I have usually seen. So do you wanna tell us what your experience has been?
Oh, okay. So yeah, like the 6, 7 rounds that I mentioned, it's for the extreme cases because some of the rounds people try to take like multiple times because they are not sure about the candidates. So the same actually 4 or 5 rounds actually gets broken into 6 or 7 rounds. That what I am trying to mention. But in general, like the interviews here are like 5 rounds. The initial HR phone screen where you talk about yourselves and everything, and then there is fast round eligibility test, or sometimes it's called like online coding. So people take it in different flavor. I have given like 2 flavors of this. So either you have a 90 minutes of time where you go to in an online platform, you give your coding exam, or you meet a person in the team where you show your earlier projects, earlier works, what you have gone through and everything. It is a like a very preliminary stage of assessing you technically, like what your expertise are, what your domain knowledge are, and those everything. And the third round would be like a pair programming interview where you would be pairing up with some of the members of their team, generally 1, 2 mostly, and then they will give you a problem. They will expect you to take the charge on that discussion and lead your solution there. And fourth would be like this is for a mostly senior software engineering positions, the system design interview. But if you are a junior or intermediate engineer, sometimes you might get it, but I think and I believe like for juniors, like there is no system design interview. So for senior engineers, system design interview is a must thing where you'd be given a hypothetical problem and you'd be solving it like pen and paper, and keeping the scale, keeping the volume and everything in mind, how your system scales from 100 users to millions of users and everything. And the last interview would be your like culture or team fit interview where you'd be asking you'd be asked about your preferences culturally, how you would contribute to the team, what's your strength in, right? Are you a team player, are you an individual player, like those kind of things. So in several times, team needs sometimes individual player, team needs sometimes team player. That actually depends on the team. So I would suggest like in the first four or three round, you would understand like what your role would be, and I would like suggest you to prepare for that one. If you are a team player, you should prepare for like how you could your show your team expertise. If you're a, it's an individual role, so these are the things to uh, be careful of, and that's all. And after the culture and team fit interview, if everything goes well, you'll be given an offer. You will accept it or not, and that's it.
Right, right. No, no, very nicely put. Your preparation depends on what sort of a role you're applying for, what level you yourself are. And I think it is important to play on your strengths. From what I know of you, you have been applying for IC roles and you are in an IC role right now as well. So, Raju, do you wanna, highlight a little on the kind of preparation that went into those coding rounds or paired programming rounds, system design round? Like, was there any material that you referred to, any books you studied, or any videos you watched?
Yeah, sure. So for me, like I took a holistic approach in terms of preparation. So I didn't go through like by the books, like I have to read 5 books, I have to read 7 books, then I graduated like class wise. I didn't do that. So what I did is like uh, I went through like mostly I brushed up my DS and algorithm skills, because like in Canada, like there are two kinds of like interview as well. Because some companies don't believe on like the coding round, because they believe like if you are just coding, you're just like memorizing some of the problem solutions things and you go from there. So that is the one kind of flavor of work. And there are some companies who are very strict about like your data structure skills, your algorithm skills and everything. So for the first one that I mentioned, like previous work, you should be absolutely clear what you did, how you did. It should not be some kind of a like vague thing that I did, like I did build a website, I did build a REST API or this kind of thing. You have to be very quantifiable. Like I have did this so that it increased like 50% of the user base. I did these things that actually reduces half second in terms of like API responses. Those kind of thing actually values a lot, because people loves quantifiable things. And the other thing is like whenever you go to data structure algorithm kind of interview, I found lead code to be very helpful. I followed lead code educative.io. Like educative.io has a fantastic like course material where you can go through all of the skills that you have. And there are some very good YouTubers out there. Like there are too many of them, I cannot mention all of them. And those YouTubers have their own questions list. Like let's say they have a planned program, like if you have 30 days left on your, so you have those kind of things, so you can go through this one. And what I told is like I have been searching for job for in the last job, whenever I was searching, it was like a month. So I stick to a plan. So every day, like I solve my question for 2 hours, then I read something, then I go into problem solving another 2 hours, then I read something like this. So I think like a structured, well planned reading plan would be very helpful for the candidates, to those who comes want to comes here. And apart from that, I followed few books. I followed like system design interview books by Alex Zhu and Shan Lam, who has like this is a two-part book. And another thing is like I followed head first design pattern, because whenever you are interviewing for a senior role, then like the coding pattern, the norms you followed, like makes a very good impression. Like if you are a good coder, that they values it a lot, because that will you will get exposed into pair programming interviews and everything. And lastly, I read a lot of engineering blogs. So mm, there is a GitHub page which is called like Awesome Engineering or something. You would get like all the engineering blogs like Uber, Facebook, like those kind of thing, like how Uber is scaled from 0 to 100, like those kind of thing. So if you read those kind of materials, it will help you in the system design interview. So as I said, like there are 5 interviews. You have to get preparation for everything. Like even sometimes you have to talk about yourselves in front of mirror just to think like how do you get prepared for the phone interview as well. So I think like whenever it comes to like you come very prepared, like I don't know, like sometimes it does make a very good impression in terms of interview that you are very prepared. So I absolutely suggest those kind of things.
Awesome, awesome. So, watching some good YouTube content, going through practicing data structure, algo questions, lead code helped you. That's amazing. And I really liked the how you initially spoke about impact. So when you're interviewing with somebody, show the impact that the project created, how the user base increased from 100,000 to a million. So giving those numbers, quantifying your work, I think definitely talks a lot in terms of what one has done as a senior engineer. That's amazing. Raju, I'm curious to understand more about system design. What is an interviewer trying to find or trying to assess in a system design interview? And it's usually, from what I know, it's usually 60 minutes. You meet two people, they ask you different questions. So what is it that the interviewer is trying to assess? And for the interviewee, how should they approach this? So I do understand that it is so important to first understand the problem and ask the right questions to dig deeper into what the interviewer is looking for. But then I would like to hear it from the mouth of a senior engineer who's done that.
Yeah, thank you. So that's a very nice question, and that's a very valuable question, I guess. System design interview is something different. You have to think of like different ace cases scenario. So I know the urge to get into coding to prove yourself that you are worthy, but by jumping in, you are like hurting more than benefiting yourselves. So first of all, like even if you have the urge, I tell you like just to spend 20 minutes, because this system design interview is a very open-ended area. Okay, because and if you ask me like what is the favorite part of my stage of the interview, I would say like system design interview, because there is no right or wrong answer in this one, because it's all about the perspective that you actually take from those two people who actually throwing you the questions. Okay, so let's say for an example, someone says like what if you do differently whenever there is like loads of users, and you say like, oh, I didn't think it into the account, so now I take it into the account, I would design the system like this. So you see like there is no right or wrong that whenever you give the question, because it's all about the context. Am I designing the software for one user, am I designing the software for 100 user, or am I designing for the software for billions of users? So that's a very like open-ended discussion. So, and I believe like if you can make a very good impression in terms of like your system design interview, like there are two kind of benefits. Like your percentage of hiring goes up very much, and also like it has an impact on your compensation as well, because the more better you are in system design, the senior position, the team would feel like, okay, I have to mentor him less because he already done this kind of thing. So my suggestion would be, first of all, to take out all the requirements correctly, like how many users. So they will say something like, I am designing a system for a just design a sign up page. How many people will sign up? How many requests will come per second? How do you think of like scaling these things? Would it be an on off thing or off thing? Is it an internal page, or it will be exposed to the whole world to see? Like those kind of thing. What would be the security modality? I know like this is a very simple thing to ask, but I would say like ask this one. Even if you don't want to, I would urge you to ask this kind of thing. And also, before you jumping onto the board or jumping onto the coding part, because in the system design there is not actually a coding part. There is actually like um, freehand drawing part where you connect the systems. So I would urge you to determine the um, no situation, like I am not doing this system design for this part. So let's say I am not allowing the users greater than 50 years to be signed up into this. Those are the criteria has to be correctly aligned, so that whenever you come to this different types of questions, like whenever you are starting the interview, whenever they comes to you like, why you are not considering these things, then you can revert back to your question, like I said, I will not be designing this system. And if they want, like, no, I don't, I want to, then that comes to your requirement, and that's come to your like no situation. So those line has to be like very well defined, like what I'm trying to design, what I'm not trying to design. And then they also try to see like your flexibility of the system. Like sometimes we design the system which is very rigid, there is no room for improvement. So let's say, uh, in software, I have been designing a system for 3 months. After 4 months, there comes a scenario where my system needs to change. If you make a concrete system, then change would be very tough, because you would need more resource to accommodate all of those things. So you need to design a system a bit flexible enough so that whenever it comes, you can wiggle it through your system correctly. So having the forethought, and also asking this question, like how do you see your user base increasing after 6 months? How do you see your user base onto after like 1 year? Because that also contribute to your system. Like if I say I don't have any users coming after 6 months, and this user base will be like only 1,000 users, then like you don't have to do like advanced kind of thing. So I would say like to be very open, and to be very communicative, that what you are trying to do and what you are not trying to do. Sometimes we feel like the people who have been taking the interview knows more than me, so I'm assuming that okay, I won't say anything because they already know all of those things. But though they know most of the things, but you should not treat them as well. You should treat them as well like a kid in the class, grade 5, where you can say like, do you want this? And he said like, yes. Okay, do you want this? You said, because the more you make them understand how easy your system design skill is, more percentage you have giving, like getting uh, uh, recruited. So yeah.
Awesome. I really like the point that you mentioned, that you should treat the interviewer like they don't know anything.
Yeah.
And that helps ask the right questions and you coming across as the right person for that senior engineer role. I think a lot of people who haven't been exposed to the North American style of interviewing lack on that front, because we start assuming. We start assuming that if the person that we're speaking with is a staff level engineer, then we don't have to dig into those questions. It's assumed that these are the don'ts and these are the do's.
Okay, so the thing is like, most of the time we'd be working with a person who is uh, either more in our seniority level, either staff developer, head of engineering, all those things. But in reality, you have a very less chance of working with them directly, rather than you would work across the team. You would work someone in the finance team to make them understand how this thing works. And they don't know about your coding skill. They just want to know like, I have this money and I don't see it, so why it is there? And then you have to make them understand that no, this is why, this is the database where there is no data, so that's why I cannot show you. So yeah, like it helps sometimes to talk very technical whenever you go design deep dive with a system engineer, with a staff engineer, those kind of thing. I agree that, and you will get it. You will get it automatically because it's always in your DNA. But what is not in your DNA is to talk with the non-technical people. Sometimes like whenever people from product team comes in, they tell you a requirement, like you didn't understand, so you have to make them understand that this is possible technically and this is not possible technically. So that's why like you have to be very clear on your communication. And that's what system design interview is, because whenever you are designing the system, you are designing the system for the end user who actually don't care about the technology. So you have to be very blunt. You have to be very toned down approach whenever you are talking with those people. So I think like system design interview is all about these things.
Yeah, I agree, and I have seen that too. I mean, a lot of engineers that I speak with on my day to day, when they break technical information into easy to understand, chewable information for me, I know this is a senior person. And the moment when they are speaking very high technical language, and they know I have an HR background. I am not a senior developer. So it is so important to structure your thoughts in a way that it is easy to understand, and use the technical language only when you're speaking to technical people. And I think this itself talks about how senior you are, because a lot of junior or intermediate developers will not be able to do that.